and welcome to Racing360. Racing has really stepped up down under, with Rosehill Gardens playing host tomorrow to the world's richest two-year-old race, the Golden Slipper. Looking forward to it, but not so the weather. Very soggy conditions in Sydney during the week, meaning a heavy track for the race.
Yeah, for people that are doing their form, Joe, for the 5 Group 1s that we're taking here in Hong Kong, and also the Group 3 supporting race at the end, you'll be looking at sort of slow to heavy track form. It's not meant to rain today as we record this show, but there are showers forecast for tomorrow, so the expectation is the track will be no better than slow and borderline slow and heavy at the moment.
Alan Aitken, the racing editor of the South China Morning Post, joins us on Racing360 to preview the Slipper meeting, and he's a man who knows Sydney racing very well, and the weather too.
Yes, Joe. Well, of course, I worked in Sydney for 20 years before I came to Hong Kong, and it was pretty much accepted that we would have wet tracks in autumn in Sydney, certainly at Randwick after the Easter weekend, but often for the Slipper as well, and through the late 80s, early 90s, that was de rigueur, if you like. You know, it was always a wet track, so you know, they've had a few years off the wet track since.
A stellar card of racing to be simulcast into Hong Kong tomorrow from Rosehill, and it's an early start with the Group 1 Vinery Stud Stakes at 5 minutes to 11 tomorrow morning, followed by the Group 1 BMW Inglis Queen of the Turf Stakes. Feature race, the Tui's new Golden Slipper, will be run at 1 p.m. in Hong Kong. The Daily Telegraph George Ryder Stakes at just before 2 o'clock. And we complete our simulcast of racing from Australia tomorrow with the Sebring Hong Kong Jockey Club Stakes at 20 minutes past 2. Let's get into it, guys. The Vinery Stud Stakes we'll start off by having a look at. This is a Group 1 feature for the fillies and mares, run over 2,000 metres. Saddlecloth number 1 goes to Driefontein, the Natural Willa Ride. Dear Demi looking to bounce back after a disappointing performance in the Coolmore last start. But Cummings saddles up Norzita. We've also got Summer Bliss running, Royal Descent, Campania, Boy Bell, and Purple Muse is the run number 15 there. So 15 to go to the post in the Vinery Stud at this stage tomorrow. But with Norzita, a proven Group 1 performer and racing very well in the lead up to this race.
It's a race with a big tail, it seems, Joe. Here's Norzita finishing 3rd in the Coolmore Classic, a very close 3rd, it must be said. I thought maybe she had an opportunity to go past appearance here, Alan, in the straight, but nevertheless still a pretty strong form reference, you'd think.
Yeah, I think that's the point. These are very good fillies. Appearance has won the only 2 Group 1 mile races in Australia this season for fillies and mares. Red Trace has got terrific form over a long period of time in Sydney, and I think for the 3-year-old filly racing against the older mares there, she's done very well. She comes back to her own age now, and I don't think there's a real worry with her getting 2,000 metres. She closed off very well there, and as Joe said, it looks quite a thin race. Norzita to me is more like an even money chance than a 2-to-1 chance, which I think she is in the markets at the moment. There don't look to be that many chances. Driefontein
and Dear Demi, they were also in that race. Do you see the 2,000 metres for, say, a horse like Dear Demi being more suitable, or was that run just not good enough? I'm sure
that the 2,000 metres is more suitable for Dear Demi. I do think that her form from the spring is still a step behind the best form in this race, which is the likes of Norzita, Driefontein and the New Zealand filly Habibi. I think she's maybe a class behind them. Victorian Oaks, not normally a particularly strong race, and I don't think it was any better than an average Victorian Oaks this year. Having said that, she will stay, whereas Driefontein, who we saw challenge for the lead in that video there, and she was not strong enough the last 100 metres, she is a risk at staying.
A couple of fillies coming up from Melbourne to contest the Vinery Stud Stakes tomorrow, including the Nigel Blackiston trained You're So Good. And she comes off a good win at Moonee Valley last start.
Yeah, she set the tempo in this race. We've just seen the last sort of 150, 200 metres, but she fought on. When challenges came on the turn, she found a kick. She's around $15 or so in Australia, Alan?
Yeah, she's probably around the right price. If there's a knockout horse in the race, she's fairly unexplored at this stage, only had a handful of starts. She was very good before she won at Moonee Valley, and she's basically never been out of the first 2. and you have to respect that. So I'd sort of put her in maybe 4th or 5th pick, but there with a knockout chance for sure.
Filly from New Zealand, called Habibi at Jason, running in the Vinery Stud Stakes, and she brings excellent form to the table.
New Zealand Derby winner. She's only been beaten once in New Zealand. Pretty dominant Derby performance as well. I'm not sure where she stacks up against, say, a Silent Achiever that's a previous winner of the Derby that we'll see later on the card, and Jimmy Shue also. But she has been pretty good in the way that she's been able to settle in races 2,000, 2,400 metres and show a turn of foot.
Yeah, well, I think she had excuses. The one time she was beaten there, she hadn't raced for 6 weeks. She was in I think, 2,100 metre race, and got a little bit shuffled back during the run. But I think the main thing was she wasn't 100% fit for that. She had the break between her previous win and that, and then she was just 2 or 3 weeks into the Derby, and she was a much stronger, much sharper horse. And I think handled differently, she may have come here unbeaten. So she's a serious threat in this race.
And like most Kiwis, proven in wet ground.
Yeah, swim.
All right, selections. Well, I've gone with Habibi, the form filly from New Zealand, to beat Sydney's Norzita, and Alzura from the David Hayes team. I'm looking for her to improve.
Norzita for me, I think she'll win the race. I put in Dry Fontaine. I do have a question mark about her staying, but she'll go forward from a wideish gate. If it does happen to be favouring the horses with wet track form, she does handle the wet, and she'll be on speed. So I put her in 2nd from Habibi.
Similar selections. I put in Dear Demi for 3rd. One on a heavy track is a 2-year-old. Not sure that she's quite going well enough, but Jim Cassidy suggested that she was a little bit unsettled during the run last start. She got a check, and if things can... I don't think it'll be quite as stern a tempo in this race as her last start. If she can travel a bit better in the run, then I think she's capable, sure.
Okay. Don't go away. We've got plenty more to analyse on one of Sydney racing's biggest days right after this.